Do you hear me now, Pierre?
Ah, so nice.
Ah,
How are you?
So our whole semester is actually to draft some plans of possible reuse for it and revival, and with somehow the lens on cohabitation between human and non-human entities. So a lot comes together. You have the reuse of a very difficult building. You have the stance on cohabitation between humans and animals, but really also other non-human entities, and also humans and humans. And we all work normally with like the medium of film. We would like to show you a movie of Pierre dealing with light.
The idea is just to have a kind of discussion, or to kind of having a feedback from somebody which is outside of it.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
I think, I mean, what comes really quickly to mind if I see the video is I think I already mentioned it to Pierre some months ago, but this book again comes to mind. It's the book I read about, and I think that's also one part of the things you are alluding to is about sleep. You remember, Pierre, that professor I was talking about? I mean, he somehow at a certain chapter really analyzes what light conditions, how they influence our sleep cycles. And then again, how that influences the certain chemical reactions inside our brains, and how that then again or deprives you from sleep or makes you sleep better. And it all has to do with how you regulate the amount of natural light you receive on your eyes. At a certain point, he speaks about the fact that people who have certain sleeping disorders, for example, they have to wear sunglasses in the morning because the wavelength of the light that they receive during the morning is bad for the chemical reactions in their brain. The second thing is that I find it, I think on the analytic part, it's already quite interesting how you see living and, let's say, non-living, or maybe that's not the thing, but more human and non-human agents, how you can try to differentiate or travel between those two through the element of light. And I think then it's really interesting to maybe even a little more in detail see how certain animals or species live differently with light than we do. And on the other hand, then that's the more like it's not a critique, but the question is it's not yet so clear where it is going. I mean, you somehow analyze the building like it is today, and what is the quality of the light that you have inside the building or not. But I don't yet see. But again, I don't know if this is the goal. If you are going to change something about that in order to better equip the building, or if you want to keep the way it is, and your attitude is more to experiment and explore how you can live with it today.
I think that we want to have that kind of out of the blue input from you. And I guess what's super interesting about this phasing and dephasing that Pierre is describing in its video is that the building could deal with its closeness somehow. In the very beginning, it says like 95% of the building or like artificial light sources, and this phasing and dephasing really is an option for controlling these 95% of the building to proposal towards like a light installation or something. I guess that would change the being of the building very much so, as if this person with this sleep deprivation, for instance, wouldn't wear sunglasses every morning. So it's life-changing experience when your light condition is kind of different.
So basically what we done actually with, let's say, we wanted to treat it also, let's say, the building and the cohabitation as, let's say, a storytelling. So how these different people could cohabitate together, because since with different cycle, different rhythm, different hobbies and everything.
But I find it interesting that I guess somehow through the fact that you want to talk about the light conditions, you start to talk about cycles. I guess what you're trying to do or to investigate is which different kind of cycles can cohabitate inside that building, or which kind of cycles can the building house and permit to be there. Or maybe you guys can invent new ones or implement new ones so that the building, that maybe, I don't know if which connotation it has today, but I can imagine it's not so positive if it was a laboratory for animal testing. And so those conditions, it would be interesting to know or to investigate why actually a laboratory for animal testing had these kind of conditions. I mean, to better understand why it has been built that way, because maybe that informs you for what you are trying to do.
Mm-hmm. The goal was also a bit to see, so let's say in 3 steps. The first one was, how do you define light for human? Then how do you define light for human and non-human? And the last one was more about why or how did we arrive with this theme of light in the Mose bunker? So how the light was used inside of this bunker. And I think that this is where I did arrive to the notion of control, that all this, because as it said in the video, 95% of the room are only artificial. So this helps somehow to a certain control of human through animal, because they don't want to keep, let's say, this randomness of being affected by other cycle for all these experiments. And this is where I found this question of cycle. And instead of putting a cycle to somebody, how can we share maybe different cycle to have a new kind of cohabitation? Because for instance, the 2 examples that we had, I mean, with Joel, we did speak about all this factory of chicken. And for instance, that all this factory of chicken now, some of them, let's say, have like only cycle of 20 hours a day. So mean like they are giving an egg faster than a day. And after, I don't know, so after a week or less, you have 1 egg more. And this was also the question, so how can you somehow with different rhythm live? And I know there is also, I'm not sure if it was, maybe that's a bit random, huh? But I know, for instance, I think it was Da Vinci, if I don't say something, who was like never having full night.
Yeah.
He was always having this like this kind of power nap actually, and he was working 2 hours and was sleeping 30 minutes, and he was having, let's say, this super long day with this kind of break every time.
Yeah, you actually remind me. I don't know where I have it from, but that's also what happens in Navy SEALs. So what they do is, if they are on missions and stuff like that, they sleep in blocks of like 3 hours sleeping, 3 hours awake, 3 hours sleeping, 3 hours awake, and it's a completely different rhythm. But it's actually scientific research didn't prove that it is bad for for how we live and for our health. So probably all these things together can be, a really nice research and combination inside that building. I guess I understand the randomness. No, but I guess the model probably, or this kind of prototyping which you are experiencing or experimenting with lighting conditions could help to communicate also within the studio. I don't know. I think they are quite nice. I just wonder if they maybe could be a bit more abstract. I don't know if that is necessary, if there really needs to be a room inside the bunker. and that you can really experiment with certain lighting conditions. I mean, now it's quite, how can I say, fluent in the change between a dark moment and a light moment. But what about, what about people with epilepsy, for example, you know, which light flashes all the time? I mean, which kind of effect does that have on humans, non-humans? Maybe there's also something in the rhythm of light, you know, because now you talk about light. I mean, as we humans experience is a very stable condition. It comes up in the morning, goes away in the evening. But is there something to say about also these kind of repetitions or rhythms or intervals? And I think that has to do a lot of with your facing, because facing can be a sinuous form, but it can also be something very punctual, very fast, very slow. Yeah, I think in your story of all those different phases, there are probably different mathematical shapes that identify or materialize other sorts of lighting conditions. And then I think it's not only anymore about stable changing conditions, but also about very, yeah, I don't know why I think about epilepsy, but it's just that it's one of the things that I know that if light has a certain intensity, people react on. And I can imagine there are maybe other things that, you could explore. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Sometimes the rough stuff is the best.